Welcome to this last episode of the Israel issue, when we're thinking about the tough questions which arise from God's choice of Israel to be a holy nation and a kingdom of priests. And today's tough question is, so what about the coming kingdom? And of course, in itself, that is not actually a tough question. Scripture is very clear about the coming kingdom, but it does lead to a very tough question. So let's begin by thinking about what Scripture says about the coming kingdom when Yeshua will reign on David's throne and over his coming kingdom, establishing and upholding it with justice and righteousness from that time on and forever. At which time Yeshua's end-time kingdom will be globally recognized, when the peoples of the world will say, "Come, let us go up to the mountain of Adonai, to the house of the God of Jacob. Then he will teach us his ways, and we will walk in his paths. For Torah will go forth from Zion, and the word of Adonai from Jerusalem." Revelation 20 speaks of this as a 1,000-year reign, after which there will be a new heaven and a new earth, fulfilling the words which come from the one who speaks from the throne, saying, "Behold, I make all things new." Now, the language, the vocabulary of Revelation is indeed symbolic. But however we are to interpret it, it still speaks of an extended and very literal reign of Yeshua from Jerusalem, from Zion, which will involve people like you and me, people who are already of Israel or who have been grafted into Israel, through whom God will fulfill that calling to Israel to be a holy nation and a kingdom of priests. And as he does this, he will also fulfill that calling that he gave to Israel, saying, "I will take hold of your hand. I will keep you as a covenant to the people, as a light to the nations, by opening blind eyes, bringing prisoners out of the dungeon, and those sitting in darkness out of the prison house." And also this prophecy through Daniel. Then the kingdom, the power, and the greatness of the kingdoms under all heaven will be given to the saints, the people of the Most High. His kingdom will be an everlasting kingdom, and all rulers will worship and obey him. Doesn't that absolutely astound you and amaze you as you think about all that lies ahead for you after your time in your present physical body is over? It really ought to change your perspective on just about everything. Because here's some more about this end-time reign and rule of Yeshua ahead of the time when all things will finally be made new. Your watchmen will see eye to eye when Adonai returns to Zion. Break forth in joy. Sing together, you ruins of Jerusalem, for Adonai has comforted his people. He has redeemed Jerusalem. Adonai has bared his holy arm before the eyes of all nations. All the ends of the earth will see the salvation of our God. And then everything that's spoken about in Isaiah 61 about the year of the Lord's favor will be fulfilled. So there will be beauty for ashes. There'll be the oil of joy instead of mourning. There will be righteousness and restoration and rebuilding, everything else that Isaiah 61 speaks of, and we may be a part of all that. But this actually leads to the tough question. And that tough question is, how much of this will we actually be a part of? Because to answer that tough question, Yeshua told two very contrasting parables. The first parable was about a nobleman who went to a faraway land to receive a kingdom, and before he left he gave to each of his servants a mina being about 3 or 4 months' wages, and told them to trade with it until he returns. So he went to the faraway land, he receives the kingdom, he returns, and then as he calls each of their servants before him, to the servant who turned that 1 mina into 10, he said this: "Because you were faithful with so little, take charge over 10 cities." And the servant who turned his 1 mina into 5 was given the charge over 5 cities. And clearly this means that when Yeshua returns to bring in his end-time kingdom, he's going to bless those who've served him on earth in proportion to the way they served him, and yet also out of all proportion to the way they served him on earth. And what an inspiration that is to us in our service of the Lord. But Yeshua also told another parable which answers that tough question in another way. Here's what he said: "Not everyone who says to me, 'Lord, Lord,' will enter the kingdom of heaven, but he who does the will of my Father in heaven. Many will say to me on that day, 'Lord, Lord, didn't we prophesy in your name? Didn't we drive out demons in your name? Didn't we perform many miracles in your name?' And then I will declare to them, 'I never knew you. Get away from me, you workers of lawlessness.'" So who will be the many who are going to hear those devastating words? That really is the tough question. And maybe the way to answer is to turn it around the other way and say, well, what is the faithfulness which reflects the doing of God's will on earth in a way which will result in that privilege that will come in the kingdom of Yeshua when he returns to reign and rule on earth? Could it be to do with the honoring, not just in principle, but in very practical actions, of the way that God chose to reveal himself to and through the nation of Israel, this nation that he chose to give such irrevocable calling to bless them with covenant, to bless them with everlasting love, to give to them giftings that would never be withdrawn? Could it be that the honoring of all that God has done to and through Israel, and into whom we may be grafted, is the key to the doing of God's will on earth in the way that truly will lead to the giving of privilege in the coming kingdom? That really is the Israel issue. And it's been my privilege to bring the reflections to you on the Israel issue over these past 3 series. If you'd like to reflect more on this, well, do go to our website, www.letthelionroar.com. Go to the Israel Issue tab. You'll find today's episode there with a few short questions to help you think more about it. You'll find all the previous episodes and all the previous questions that we've given you to help you study this topic in more detail. And we do encourage you not only to reflect back across the whole of the Israel issue, but please do share this message with others. Do share the Let the Lion Roar film, which can come either in its box set or as a digital download. You will find with that as well the accompanying book, The Escaping the Great Deception, and please do share this with anyone and everyone. It is the most vital issue for the times in which we are living. So finally, may God bless you as you serve the God of Israel, honoring and blessing the way he chose to reveal himself through the nation of Israel.
Audio Jungle.